Part 4. The application. Clarity in work and life. Chapter 10. Clarity in communication. Clarity is not only something to understand, it is something to practice. Up to this point, we have explored what clarity is, why it matters, and what happens in its absence. But clarity does not remain in ideas alone. It must be applied. It must be expressed. It must be lived out in the way we communicate every day. Because communication is where clarity becomes visible. It is where what you think is translated into what others can understand. And it is in this translation that many things are either preserved or lost. To communicate with clarity, three things must be present: simplicity, truthfulness, and intentionality. These are not separate. They work together. Simplicity ensures that what you are saying can be understood. Truthfulness ensures that what you are saying is accurate. Intentionality ensures that what you are saying has direction. Without simplicity, communication becomes difficult to follow. Without truthfulness, communication becomes unreliable. Without intentionality, communication becomes scattered. Clarity requires all three. Simplicity is often misunderstood. It is not about reducing meaning. It is about removing what is unnecessary so that what matters can be seen. It is about focusing attention on what is essential. When something is simple, it becomes easier to grasp. It does not require excessive effort to process. It allows the listener to follow without confusion. This does not mean everything must be short. It means everything must be clear. You can speak at length and still be simple if what you are saying is structured and focused. You can also speak briefly and still be unclear if what you are saying lacks direction. Simplicity is not about length, it is about clarity of expression. Truthfulness is equally important. Clarity without truth is not helpful. It may be easy to understand, but it leads in the wrong direction. This is why clarity must always be anchored in truth. To communicate truthfully, is to ensure that what you are saying reflects reality, that it is accurate, that it is not distorted for the sake of convenience or impression. This requires integrity. It requires the willingness to say what is correct, even when it is not popular. It requires the discipline to avoid exaggeration or ambiguity that creates misunderstanding. Because when people trust your communication, they rely on its accuracy. Intentionality brings direction. Not every thought needs to be expressed. Not every idea needs to be shared. Clarity requires choosing what to say and what to leave out. Intentional communication is focused. It considers the purpose of what is being said. It considers the audience. It considers the desired outcome. This does not mean manipulation. It means awareness. You are not speaking randomly. You are communicating with purpose. These principles become clearer when applied in real situations. In business, clarity in communication determines how value is perceived. A company may have a strong offering, but if it is not communicated clearly, it struggles to gain attention. The message may be filled with terms that sound professional, but do not explain what is actually being offered. For example, instead of saying, "We provide integrated end-to-end solutions for enterprise optimization," clarity would require saying, "We help organizations improve how they operate so they can reduce waste and work more efficiently." The meaning is the same, but one is clear and the other is not. The market responds to what it understands. This aligns with your work in the cinematic strategist, where you emphasize that the problem is not always the product, but the way it is communicated. When the message is unclear, the value is not recognized. Clarity is what allows that value to be seen. It is what connects what a business offers to what a customer understands. Without that connection, there is no response. In ministry, clarity is even more critical. The goal is not simply to share truth, but to ensure that it is understood, because understanding is what allows people to receive it and respond. This means avoiding language that creates unnecessary distance. It means explaining concepts in ways that people can relate to. It means ensuring that what is being said is not only accurate, but accessible. For example, instead of speaking in abstract terms about redemption, clarity might require explaining what it means in practical terms, what has been done, why it matters, and how it applies to the person listening. This does not reduce the message, it reveals it. There is also a discipline involved in clarity. It requires reviewing what you say, listening to how it is received, adjusting where necessary. It requires asking questions such as, "Is this clear? Can this be misunderstood? Is there a simpler way to say this?" These questions are part of the process. Clarity is not something that happens once. It is something that is refined over time. There is also the importance of listening. Communication is not only about speaking, it is also about understanding how others are receiving what you say. If people consistently misunderstand you, it is not enough to repeat yourself. It is necessary to adjust how you communicate, because the goal is not repetition, it is understanding. Listening provides feedback. It reveals where clarity is needed. It shows where assumptions have been made, and it allows you to improve. Clarity in communication also requires patience. It takes time to develop the ability to express ideas clearly. It takes effort to refine thoughts and structure them effectively. It requires the willingness to slow down and think carefully. But this investment produces results. When communication is clear, things move more easily. Decisions are made more quickly. Trust is strengthened. Action becomes more consistent because understanding has been established. Take a moment to reflect. How do you communicate in your daily life? Are your words simple enough to be understood? Are they truthful and accurate? Are they intentional and focused? Where might clarity improve your communication? Clarity is not abstract. It is practical. It shows up in how you speak, how you write, how you explain, how you lead. It is present in every interaction. And when it is applied consistently, it changes outcomes. Because when communication is clear, understanding follows. And when understanding follows, response becomes possible. Clarity in communication is where everything begins to move. Chapter 11. Clarity in purpose. Before clarity appears in how you speak, it must first appear in how you live, because communication is only an extension of understanding. And if your understanding of your own direction is unclear, your expression will reflect that. You may speak often, but without weight. You may act consistently, but without alignment. You may produce, but without movement. This is what happens when purpose is unclear. Clarity in purpose is not about having many options. It is about knowing what you are called to do and what you are not called to do. There is a difference between activity and direction. Many people are active. They are doing something. They are engaged. They are producing. But activity without clarity does not always lead to progress. It often leads to exhaustion, because without clear purpose, effort becomes scattered. Energy is divided across too many directions. Attention is pulled by whatever appears urgent. Decisions are made based on immediate pressure rather than long-term alignment. And over time, this creates a sense of movement without real advancement. Clarity in purpose brings focus. It defines what matters. It establishes direction. It creates a standard by which decisions can be made. When purpose is clear, not everything is equally important. Some things become necessary, others become optional, and many become distractions. This is important because one of the greatest challenges to clarity is not the absence of opportunity, but the presence of too many. Distraction is often misunderstood. It is not always something negative. It is often something good, but not aligned. A distraction can be an opportunity that does not serve your purpose. It can be an idea that is interesting but not essential. It can be an activity that feels productive but does not contribute to your direction. This is why clarity in purpose requires discipline. Not just the discipline to do what matters, but the discipline to say no to what does not. Noise plays a role here as well. I spoke to you about noise earlier. Just as there is noise in communication, there is noise in direction. There are many voices suggesting what you should do, many examples of what others are doing, many expectations, both external and internal. If you are not clear about your purpose, those voices begin to shape your decisions. You begin to respond instead of lead. You begin to follow instead of focus. You begin to adjust constantly instead of building consistently. And in this process, clarity is lost. Clarity in purpose requires stillness. It requires the willingness to step back and ask, what am I actually called to do? What is the work that has been entrusted to me? What is essential and what is not? These are not quick questions. They require reflection. They require honesty, because clarity cannot be borrowed from others. It must be understood personally. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. Purpose is not only discovered through ambition, it is revealed through alignment. When you are aligned with what you are called to do, there is a sense of direction, not necessarily ease, but clarity. You know what you are building. You know what you are pursuing. You know what matters. This does not eliminate challenges, but it removes confusion. And without confusion, decisions become clearer. Clarity in purpose also simplifies communication. When you know what you are about, it becomes easier to express it. Your message becomes consistent. Your actions align with your words. Your direction becomes visible to others. This is why people are drawn to clarity. It is not only what is said, but the consistency behind it, the alignment between intention and action. When purpose is clear, everything begins to align. In practical terms, this affects how you work. You begin to prioritize differently. You begin to structure your time differently. You begin to evaluate opportunities differently. You ask not only, is this good, but is this aligned? This changes everything because not every good opportunity is the right opportunity. There is also a cost to lacking clarity in purpose. It leads to wasted time. It leads to divided attention. It leads to inconsistent results. And over time, it leads to frustration. Not because you are not working, but because your work is not aligned. This is similar to the cost of confusion in communication. It may not be obvious at first, but it accumulates. Clarity in purpose reduces the cost. There is a connection between purpose and restraints. To be clear about what you are called to do is also to be clear about what you must ignore. This is not easy. It requires letting go of things that may seem valuable. It requires resisting the urge to respond to everything. It requires staying committed to a direction even when other options appear. But these restraints create focus, and focus creates progress. Take a moment to reflect. What are you currently doing that is not aligned with your purpose? Where is your attention being divided unnecessarily? What might you need to remove in order to become more focused? These questions are not about doing less. They are about doing what matters. Clarity in purpose is not about knowing everything. It is about knowing enough to move in the right direction. It is about having a clear sense of what you are building, why you are building it, and what it requires from you. And once that clarity is established, everything else becomes easier to evaluate. Clarity in purpose leads to clarity in action. It removes unnecessary noise. It reduces distraction. It strengthens focus. And over time, it produces consistent movements. Because when you know what you are called to do, you no longer move randomly. You move intentionally. And that changes everything. Chapter 12. Clarity in creation. Everything you create is communicating something, whether you intend it or not. What you produce carries meaning. A piece of content, a business offering, a message, a design, a product. Each one speaks. It tells people what you value, what you are offering, and how they should respond. The question is not whether your creation communicates. The question is whether it communicates clearly. Creation is often approached from the perspective of output. People focus on producing, making something, sharing something, putting something into the world. And while production is important, it is not enough. Because creation without clarity leads to confusion. You can produce consistently and still be misunderstood. You can create frequently and still fail to connect. You can build something valuable and still have it overlooked. Not because the creation lacks substance, but because its meaning is not clear. Clarity in creation means that what you produce can be understood. It means that the person encountering your work does not have to guess what it is, why it matters, or how to engage with it. It means that the value is visible, not hidden. This does not require oversimplification. It requires intentionality. It requires asking, what is this? Why does this matter? Who is it for? What should happen next? If these questions are not answered clearly, the creation becomes difficult to engage with. This applies directly to content. Many people create content regularly. They post, they share, they express ideas, but often the content lacks direction. It may be interesting, but it is not clear what it is trying to communicate. The message is present, but it is not defined. As a result, people see it, but do not engage deeply. They move on quickly, not because they are uninterested, but because they do not fully understand what they are seeing. Clarity changes this. When content is clear, people know what they are receiving. They can follow the message. They can connect with the idea, and they are more likely to respond. This also applies in business. A business is not only what it does, it is how clearly what it does is understood. You may offer a valuable service. You may solve a real problem. But if your message does not make that clear, the market will not respond as expected. People do not buy what they do not understand. This is where many businesses struggle. They describe what they do in ways that are technically correct but practically unclear. They use language that sounds professional but does not communicate value. This creates a gap between what is offered and what is perceived. Clarity closes that gap. In your work, particularly in the cinematic strategist, you describe how value is often lost between intention and execution. The idea exists, but it is not translated effectively. The message is present, but it is not carried through clearly. This is the same issue in creation. If what you create does not clearly reflect what you intend, then something has been lost in the process. Clarity ensures that what you mean is what is received. Creation is also about message. Every creation carries a message, whether explicit or implied. It tells people what to think, what to feel, or what to do. If that message is unclear, the result is confusion. People may interpret it differently. They may misunderstand your intention. They may engage with it in ways you did not anticipate. This is why clarity in message is essential. It ensures that what you are communicating is not left open to unnecessary interpretation. There is also a discipline involved in clarity in creation. It requires refining what you produce. Not everything that is created needs to be released. Not every idea needs to be shared immediately. Sometimes, clarity requires stepping back, reviewing, and adjusting before presenting something to others. This is part of the process. Clarity is not always achieved in the first attempt. It is developed through refinement. This also requires perspective. When you create, you understand what you mean, but others do not have the same context. They do not see what you see. They do not know what you know. This creates a gap. Clarity in creation means bridging that gap. It means stepping outside your own understanding and considering how your work is received by others. It means ensuring that what is obvious to you is also clear to them. There is a tendency to assume that people will take the time to figure things out. But this is not always the case. People respond quickly. They make decisions based on what they understand in the moment. If something is unclear, they move on. This is not because they are unwilling. It is because clarity was not provided. This is why clarity must be intentional. Clarity in creation also brings consistency. When what you create is clear, it aligns with your purpose. It reflects your direction. It communicates the same message across different forms. This creates recognition. People begin to understand what you represent. They begin to connect your work with a clear idea. They begin to respond consistently. Without clarity, this consistency is lost. Each creation becomes isolated. Each message feels different. And over time, this creates confusion. Take a moment to reflect. What are you currently creating? And how clear is it? If someone encounters your work for the first time, will they understand it? Will they know what it is and why it matters? Or will they need to interpret it on their own? These questions reveal where clarity is needed. Clarity in creation is not about doing more. It is about making what you do understandable. It is about ensuring that what you produce can be received. Because creation is not complete when something is made. It is complete when it is understood. Everything you create is an opportunity to communicate clearly, to reveal value, to guide understanding, to produce response. And when clarity is present, what you create does not remain hidden. It becomes visible. It becomes accessible. It becomes effective because it is understood. Chapter 13. Clarity in leadership. Leadership is often measured by vision, strength, or the ability to make decisions. But beneath all of these is something more foundational: clarity. A leader is not only responsible for direction, a leader is responsible for making that direction understandable. Because people do not follow what they do not understand. It is possible for a leader to have a clear vision internally, yet fail to communicate it externally. In such cases, the problem is not the absence of direction, but the absence of clarity. The leader sees where things are going, but those who are meant to follow cannot see it as clearly. And because they cannot see it, they cannot move with confidence. This is where confusion begins, not from a lack of intention, but from a lack of translation. Leadership requires more than knowing what to do. It requires making it clear to others what should be done, why it matters, and how it should be approached. Without this, even the most capable team becomes ineffective. Not because they lack skill, but because they lack understanding. When direction is unclear, people interpret it differently. They make assumptions. They fill in gaps with their own understanding. As a result, alignment is lost. Everyone is moving, but not in the same direction. This is why leaders must remove confusion, not create it. Confusion in leadership is costly. It slows down execution. It creates hesitation in decision making. It leads to inconsistent results. And over time, it weakens trust. Because when people are unsure of what is expected, they begin to question the stability of the leadership itself. Clarity in leadership creates alignment. When direction is clear, people understand their role. They understand the objective. They understand how their work contributes to the larger goal. This creates confidence. They do not need to guess. They do not need to interpret excessively. They can act with certainty. And when people act with certainty, progress becomes more consistent. This connects directly to the distinction you have made in your work between the architect and the vendor. The architect understands the vision. The architect defines the structure. The architect determines what is built. The architect determines what is being built and why. The vendor executes tasks. The problem arises when leadership operates without fully embracing the role of the architect. When a leader functions only at the level of execution, giving instructions without ensuring understanding, the organization begins to resemble a collection of vendors rather than a unified system. Tasks are completed, but meaning is lost. This creates confusion. The architect, on the other hand, takes responsibility for clarity. The architect ensures that the vision is not only defined, but understood. That the structure is not only designed, but communicated. That the intent behind every action is clear. This is the role of a leader, not just to decide, but to define clearly. Not just to instruct, but to ensure understanding. Because without this, execution becomes disconnected from purpose. This is what you describe as the gap between strategy and execution, the space where meaning is lost. In leadership, this gap is especially dangerous because when a leader does not bridge it, no one else can. The team depends on the leader for clarity. If clarity is not provided, confusion spreads. And once confusion spreads, it becomes difficult to correct. Clarity in leadership also requires consistency. It is not enough to be clear once. It must be repeated, reinforced, and reflected in action. If a leader communicates one thing but acts in another way, confusion is introduced. If direction changes frequently without clear explanation, uncertainty increases. Clarity is not only in words, it is in alignment between words and actions. This is what builds trust. There is also a discipline involved in this. Leaders must take the time to think clearly before speaking, to structure their communication, to anticipate where confusion may arise. This requires effort. It requires simplifying complex ideas without losing their meaning. It requires ensuring that what is communicated can be understood by those who are receiving it. This is not always convenient, but it is necessary. Clarity in leadership also involves listening. A leader must not assume that what has been said has been understood. There must be awareness of how communication is being received. If confusion exists, it must be addressed, not ignored, not dismissed, but clarified. Because the goal is not expression, it is alignment. There is also a personal aspect to this. Clarity in leadership begins with clarity in thinking. If a leader is unclear internally, that lack of clarity will be reflected externally. Decisions will appear inconsistent. Communication will lack direction, and the organization will feel unstable. This is why leaders must develop clarity within themselves. Before they can guide others, they must understand clearly where they are going. Take a moment to reflect. If someone were to ask your team what you are building, will their answers be consistent? If they were to explain your direction, will it be clear? Or will there be multiple interpretations? These questions reveal the level of clarity in leadership. Clarity is not a luxury in leadership, it is a requirement, because leadership is not only about moving forward, it is about moving together, and that can only happen when direction is clear. Leaders do not add noise, they remove it. They do not create confusion, they resolve it. They do not leave things open to interpretation, they make them understandable. Clarity in leadership is what turns vision into movement. It bridges the gap between intention and execution. It ensures that what is being built is not only defined, but understood. And when that happens, people do not just follow, they move with purpose because they are clear.